Thank you. I call this meeting to order at 6:33 p.m. The territorial acknowledgement. The Board of Directors acknowledges that the University of Waterloo is on the traditional territory of the neutral Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee peoples. Our organization operates on the Hodman Tract, land promised to the Six Nations, which includes 6 miles on each side of the Grand River. The agenda has been distributed beforehand. Are there any comments with regards to the agenda? Any? The agenda will stand approved as distributed. Conflicts of interest. Would anyone like to declare a conflict of interest at this time? I will repeat the question. Are there any just for getting in? Is there anyone who'd like to declare a conflict of interest at this time? That was just a wave, Jeff. So yeah, not seeing anything. Moving on to the consent agenda. Are there any comments with regards to that? Seeing any, then they will stand approved as distributed as well. Okay, we'll move right into things. As you might have seen on the agenda, we have moved the confidential session ahead of the public session today. So I'm going to motion that we enter confidential session. Can I have a seconder for that? Katie? Mike, let me know when the live stream is paused.
People were watching our live stream, ours was like, when will they come back?
Oh, right back.
Good.
Thank you, Mike. And I think it's just me watching right now. I'm sure we'll watch it later. We'll go right to unfinished business. So, Jeff, you had submitted this motion for can I have a seconder?
Yes, hello everybody. I was probably one of the first people who spoke against this in our last meeting. I'm coming back presenting it actually. Here's why. So I think one of the things in the original motion that I picked out last meeting that most of concerns me that I tried to put a lot of weight on was the staff burden that it caused. But some of the worries I had and the reasons why I voted against it and spoke strongly against it at the time was director engagement. You know, we want the board of directors to stay fully knowledgeable about everything that's going on and state directors to stay engaged in committees where I think a lot of the stuff can happen aren't fully running. But I think in addition to some conversations around sort of the burden that meetings have created, I think some of those concerns can be addressed in different ways. One concern that some people might have had even today is, you know, we're running slightly over time. There's a lot of things that need to be covered in meetings, and if we switch to monthly, we won't have as much time. But I think a lot of the questions and understanding that we as board members need to ask and need to understand can be done in like more informal like question periods or discussions outside of the board context, which isn't necessarily even the most efficient. Because, you know, if people can sessions where that is perhaps more efficient for the board to understand more. With regards to board engagements, also I think board meetings aren't even necessarily the best way to do that. I say in that we can explore like more of these like question periods, or even just the board informally gathering and discussing issues that they think are topical and should be efficiently brought up at future board meetings. I guess the last sort of point with that is just giving us all a lot of time to be fully prepared for all these meetings and know exactly, having our questions and information requests resolved ahead of time. If more things come up, then we deal with them in the meeting, but just really being efficient in the meeting itself, where we will probably have a lot of business to get to, but hopefully everyone already understands coming in at least the facts so that we can debate the details if there are any. I think there might have been one more point, but I'll leave it open to discussion for people. Try to remember that.
Thank you for that, Jeff. We are funnies, but
Hey, yeah, I remember I didn't agree either with this originally, and it's great. I still don't. Sorry. I think, to boost board engagement, but I do agree originally that it is something we should try. So I think I would be open to amending this and giving it a test run a couple months. I don't think we should lock ourselves into this, because when I take a look at the director report, we're still missing director reports. Not to call anyone out, but we're still missing director reports everywhere. So
Clearly board meetings aren't fixing that though.
yeah. So I think I'd be open to trying it for a month. I think I remember it was mentioned in the board. What's the thing that we just had, that review, that report drawn up about?
Evaluation.
Yes.
Yeah.
At board evaluation, it was mentioned that we could defer more to committees. So I think opening this up to a month would give us more time, but I don't think we should lock ourselves in, because this could not turn out well.
I guess the motion hasn't been. It's a friendly amendment if we want to streamline that a little bit.
Maybe make a suggestion. You try it a little bit longer than a month, and you can always.
Yeah, no, I was going to think
back to.
3 or 4 months.
Okay. I thought that you were
End of the
saying.
term. So say till, because it sounded like.
Yeah, no, not just try it, because we won't know.
Assuming like
No, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, no. I was thinking try a couple months. And if it works, we keep on.
We want to do it for the term.
I would love that.
I think if it turns out so badly that it's going wrong,
You can call
fix
extra
it.
meetings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can fix it.
Yeah.
So
Can I ask a question? Just on the timing of it, it's probably more to staff. Always the difficulty of the first Wednesday of the month, are your financials closed off? Because you will want to have financial reports. So you just want to make sure that you're not putting you too far behind. Maybe you are, doesn't matter.
I don't.
It may not be an issue. I just have to raise that question because that is one of your responsibilities. Yeah.
this is what I forgot. I know we're running over time, but briefly, I guess, Suzanne, could you speak to some of the like impacts that a switch to monthly meetings might have on, or rather what we have now, for everyone's understanding?
Yeah, I think that just from a time perspective, you can see the number of folks that are here and on the call, and it goes on a 2-week cycle that we finish a meeting and then we start up again, thinking about things that we need to do or prepare things that we want to do, and then writing reports and having conversations. It would be helpful for us to do that on a monthly basis, to be able to focus our time and resources in different places. And again, Jeff, I think it's also a good opportunity for folks to engage in more of an informal way and have some conversation about some questions and things that they might have. I think will also help build what we've been talking about.
Let your committees do their work too.
Yes. Matthew, very briefly, do you want to suggest some ideas around board engagement?
Yeah, of course. So this is something I've been thinking about a lot in terms of once we're outside of this sort of very formal forum, we have a lot more options in terms of the ways that we can engage and to keep board members engaged. So I was chatting to Suzanne and a couple of staff members around ahead of board meetings with this kind of capacity, not having to do it every 2 weeks. The governance manager can have a touch point with, each director or small groups of directors and get a sense of what are the questions you're looking for, what are your thoughts, what's on the agenda, and then I can go and have those conversations with the relevant staff members through the reporting. Because right now, you ask a lot of questions and you have to get the answer to, well, I'm not sure because it's such a large organization. I'll get back to the next meeting. But if we can do this kind of preparation ahead of time, which is only really possible when you're doing it a little more early, then something can get a lot more robust stuff in here. And then get sort of sets that feedback in those informal sessions, as well as something that Board of Governors does. And I know there's been some conversation around here is the board has interest around some particular area of the organization. We can still ask for a presentation in an informal kind of if there's something interesting, you come in, chat about it, ask questions, and dig a little bit deeper than we can in this formal forum where you're, staying at the governance level, where you're working this governance level. We can offer a little bit more of understanding if that's where the interest is, so long as, again, we're still keeping that governance level in the board meeting. And those are one of the options we have on the table, just with more time.
Well, in those extra sessions,
Yeah.
the information sessions,
Yes.
and it's not a board meeting, so it's a time for you to learn more knowledge. It's almost like you're onboarding continually, which is great. It's
Exactly.
a good way to do it.
Precisely what the Board of Governors does ahead of their meetings. They have a lot of stuff they're able to get a deep dive that we're trying to capacity and just the frequency.
Are there any more comments, questions, concerns? Not seeing any. Okay. So I believe the motion has already been made and seconded, so I will call the question. I guess. Let me check the exact wording. Are there dates given in the original motion that you submitted, Jeff?
No, I don't know. Also,
So-
I think we amended it for the fall.
Got it. I think that could probably be made into one quick amendment. I guess is the goal to do it every 4 weeks.
It says the first Wednesday of the month.
Oh,
First one's
my
good.
bad. That's included.
Okay, I guess it doesn't include that, but it doesn't include a set end date, I assume.
So we can just add it.
Can we add that on?
You're taking it as a friendly?
Yes,
amendment?
yes.
Okay. I'm assuming unless anyone else says anything, we'll take that as a friendly amendment. And so we will call the question, I guess. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Is unanimous. Okay. Moving on to the next item of business, the discussion on the used bookstore at Reddit. This one was submitted by Alex. Can I have a seconder for that? Edie? Right. Yes. The motion I make to extend the meeting time, Sarah?
Do you need, because you should extend it, yes, because you've got a guaranteed time.
Yep. Okay, so I motion that we extend this meeting time till 12 p.m. Okay, is there a second for that? Katie? Fine. We're tonight, guys.
We're all looking at Maria and we're like, who needs a ride home? I can
Just this one. And I guess the reports.
Okay,
I don't think we'll go past
9 p.m.
9:30. Okay.
We're all hopeful. 9 p.m.
Discussion, so really it's up to you all. How much
Okay. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Sending it to 12. Okay. All those opposed? Okay. I guess it passes.
I kind of wish someone opposed.
Back to you, Alex, if you want to start off this conversation.
Yes. In the interest of time, I realized the second I submitted this thing, some questions have already been answered. So with the first one there, I asked if the annual guest count of 5,000, if that's a high or low number when considering everything. I understand that 5,000 isn't 5,000 students. That's 5,000 books,
Inside, yes.
which is an actual number of, is it 1,300 students?
I believe that that's the number that you got recently, updated. That is the customer count. Yeah.
And I just want to state this isn't, not jumping ship here. This was really in response to the pretty wild blowback we got immediately. And after staff gave that in-depth explanation, it seemed most of that was quelled down. However, I still maybe didn't do the smartest thing and put my email on Reddit, but I mean, I did reach out. So some lessons are learned, but I did reach out because I am interested in hearing from students about who's still interested in keeping this going and more so why they're interested. I've heard back from a small handful of people. So this discussion is really just aimed at getting people talking about the used bookstore, not jumping and going, let's reverse the decision, but maybe it's worth having a discussion. Other directors don't feel that way, so yeah. Do you have any?
I mean, we're all just
Open it up to the floor.
Everyone's tired.
Whoa, discussion went so fast.
Do you want me to keep blowing through? Because I have more questions. So the second question, should we have made the decision to widen down the used bookstore based on the finances, or perhaps should we also consider the utility? It seems apparent to me, on reflecting at this, that this came up in the commercial budget. Every single director here approved it. I believe it was unanimous. All approved it. So I think truly though, if we had sat down and asked each director, and if we approve this is going to close the used bookstore, I don't believe we all would have voted unanimously. I hope other directors feel the same way, that closing down a utility, regardless of how small it is, it fills a service. And for the students that I've heard back from, most of them struggled financially, and that's why it was such a huge crutch for them. I don't know. I don't think we would have all voted unanimously. Does anyone want to speak to that? Keep going on.
I'm waiting to see if anyone else answers it first.
Just go.
Okay. I guess, okay, this is a quick one. I guess this feels like I'm just plugging the previous motion, but hopefully, with weekly meetings and more engaged info sessions, we can avoid this in the future and sort of carefully go through, refine those details, because in the end, the board, I guess, made this decision. I didn't really say anything there, but to plug the previous motion.
I will say, I think like since the decision has already been made for it, and the rationale was there behind it for why that space was being closed and why like a business operation was being closed, maybe what is really just required is a discussion on like, are we looking at alternatives, or like what exactly is the outcome from this discussion as a whole?
That's a fair question.
Yeah, so I'm throwing it back to you. Yeah. Well, we don't have to continue our discussion. You can continue. That was just a point.
Yeah, I mean, oh, sorry, go ahead, John.
You go first.
Basically, I think when I was thinking about this is that staff use the used bookstore, rightfully so, as a commercial budget, right? That's why it was on there, as a business.
It's possible as a commercial operation.
Yeah, right, which maybe 10 years ago, it was when it was making $2 million, or it was making a lot of money.
That's the revenue.
Revenue. That's a business. And then as it fell over time with students using e-text and all that rationale, it's very well provided. It fell down to revenue of 50,000.
Consignment sales of 170,000. It was under 200,000 total sales.
Okay, under 200,000.
Yeah.
I think it, at least in students' eyes and in my eyes, it shifted from being such a huge revenue stream to providing a basic and simple service. I don't think 170,000 or even 200,000, even 50,000. I don't think that's valid really enough. Like, I don't think at that point we should have still been considering it really based on business. I think we should have looked into what more of the utility provided.
I think there are other factors that are involved that, lock the continued existence of the bookstore in its current state. With regards to the inventory and point of sale system that is currently being used, like that is no longer going to be supported after 4 months. And so the university has come to us and said, that's an external service that you're using. We're going to be cutting you off after that 4-month period. You're not going to be able to use that system anymore. So it's also looking at the cost to retrofit a new either point of sale or inventory system to the space if we wanted to continue in the way that it currently operates. And it would be a huge expense compared to the amount of money that bookstore is bringing in. Not to say that, that's a good reason at all, but just to say that that's, something that needs to be thought of, particularly when it comes to services, in its current state, I would say that without the money that is being gained in other ways, like selling the books on Amazon and stuff like that, we would be losing a lot of money on that service if that's what we were to make it, to the point where it'd be our most expensive service by far.
I guess one question I might have in a potential path forwards to sort of explore this is, could we request from the staff potentially at the next meeting? I know during the commercial budget discussions, Marty mentioned the wind down plan would be shared, but could we have some options presented to the board for during this wind down process, ways that we might still be able to fill some sort of niche for this student need as has been identified in some either reduced or simplified capacity that can still help students, that some students still find helpful, but don't, we're not running a fully fledged, I don't know, spending millions or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, hundreds of thousands.
Yeah. Very valid points, and boards have been evaluating the used bookstore since 2013, 2014, when that kind of sales dip started happening. Just for a few kind of additional pieces for further context, in 2015, we were identified replacing the point of sale, and at that time, the investment that we would have to make to replace that point of sale, we didn't deem, based on the life expectancy of the bookstore in 2015, we didn't kind of make that investment. So it was kind of on our foresight in terms of management. Just to be completely transparent, we're not trying to say, hey, we waited until the end of the life cycle and that's it. There's that context. There's also context to utility and kind of its purpose. If we do run this as a service, my initial estimates are minimum of $50,000 to $100,000 a year as a service fee. It can even be more depending on, making sure we allocate the right people, personnel, and so forth to it. With under 1,000 students that have visited it, it may be better or more wise for the board to set up a textbook subsidy instead for those that are the most in need, right? We could get more dollars to the students that need it the most and get further utility out of our dollars spent. We've reached the crossroads of 200,000 might seem, or even 50,000 might seem a lot less than 2 million, but 200,000 doesn't mean we have 200,000 to spend at the end of it. 200,000 means we've done $200,000 of textbook sales for students. We only net 30,000 on that, 15% at best case scenario. $30,000 doesn't even pay for, as you folks just saw, for what a manager costs, a third of that manager's salary, right? So we would be going down a very, very, very expensive path if we were to continue it. We've evaluated things for even, let's change it. Let's make the business not as expensive for the point of sale software. Let's explore buyback, which is, hey, we give you money for your book today, not, hey, you sell it and we wait for it to be sold, because that's the complexity of the system. We evaluated this and we surveyed students maybe 2016, 17, if I'm not, maybe a little earlier, I forget. This was very, very pre-COVID, but this was when we were trying to take every swing we could to save the bookstore and its sales, because again, we weren't idle. Over the years, we tried to we did diversify a lot of the revenue streams by selling on Amazon, bringing in these books from the States to then resell to students that in the last 5 years don't want to sell with us. Why? Because they can get more money on Facebook Marketplace. Students don't want to buy with us. Why? Because they can get a good sale. So that ecosystem that we kind of were able to really monetize on, and obviously also serve students, the pre-internet, 2002 was when the system was built, so pre-modern day internet and e-commerce, was really ahead of its time, and we were able to, get a lot of utility out of it. What that utility is now, we really got to put it in some sort of a chart or matrix to see, okay, everything from square, and we kind of have in the back end, but you got to look at everything from total square footage that space occupies. If we were to turn that into a bookable room, I can guarantee you 20 to 30,000 students using that space. Now, does that make your decision a little different, right? So there's a lot of factors that, at least from a commercial operations management, pointing to it's not deemed a viable commercial operation, and we're bound to obviously be responsible for the money of our students, and we don't want to we come out of a very deep hole of in 2012 to 2016. Brian and I have been working really hard. Brian was in the commercial team before, to get all our businesses out of losing money. We are now breaking even, so we're in a much more sustainable side on that side of the organization. And now when we've got these decisions ahead, we really don't want to go back. We want to continue to build commercial ventures, especially that are our resources should be going towards Chaska Wasabi, the Bomber Lounge expansion, and so forth, and those commercial ventures where we have a bit of a roadmap, documents and plans mapped out, and we may have to just say goodbye to this legacy business, but yeah.
Right, I mean, just as I was in that space previously, the one piece that I would love to highlight is the amount of conversations that we've had about inventory. Even speaking with the university, I think there's also a misconception of how much money can be made on books. There's a lot of money from the publisher end that can be made on books, from a seller, even new or used, very little. COVID really accelerated the use of online codes, online e-texts, to the point of where professors aren't even having the decision if they can get a physical book printed, even if they were the author. The publishers are just saying this is e-text only. And upwards of 60% of books that professors are requesting via ISBNs and putting into the request system at the university new bookstore are e-text. And so similar to what Kumar noted is like the amount of books that are coming back to us are quite reduced. They're anticipating that number to only continue to increase. When we did survey students on that, students did prefer a physical book, truthfully. But we are at the hands of what publishers want to do, along with what faculty are able to do as well, and what they're committed to. And like our comms team alluded to, is like that push for open educational resource is huge, even from an institutional perspective, so that there's lesser costs involved with OERs. But the long-term viability, even if it continues to go as a service, we haven't seen any of those numbers stabilize. And that was a big piece within our analysis as well, is the numbers keep going down, and we have not, we're almost like in stock market terms, you're catching a falling knife. And that's not necessarily a good thing. With the inventory and the usership and all of that written on the wall, I think even as a service and the amount of time and resources from staff to research what books are being used, that term, what's relevant, are professors even allowing older editions? All of that is taking such a significant amount of time, like nearly every day, to be able to fill that. So even if it does position a service, the salaries to support that aren't going anywhere, or the staffing requirements to do that, which also was a big factor in the decision that, and the information I collected before, obviously the decision was fully made, but that showed the path and the viability of that is on a really negative trajectory. Like, unfortunately, and it has nothing to do with us around the table, we'd love to keep selling books. It's awesome. Like, it's great, and like the rush and the service and the cost savings, but it like Kumar said, the utility of the dollars being put in and the infrastructure was unsustainable, especially from the mandate. It wasn't staff that sets the mandate for commercial operations either. That was our board and our students who set the mandates that commercial operations are revenue neutral, unless approved by the board of directors to be subsidized via surplus or from a financial decision. And so that is the mandate that the commercial team is down by at this time.
Yeah. I'll keep this clear. Just a quick clarification to earlier when I guess I was sort of alluding to additional options in the report. I guess under the bullet point of supporting the wind down of used books, I guess options, for example, along the alternatives to running books, or other directors may have other ideas as well. And that's It's really good. It's what we're here for. But what I was interested in, I guess, is like alternatives that fill that need without necessarily running a store. Like, this is extra work. But at some point, the board seeing maybe some ideas around what you guys, since you're the subject matter experts, can discuss, whether it be like a student book swap event, or adding books to WUSA thrift, or but other alternatives around that to as we wind up just to those
if I may, so we have had and again, I do, we can definitely bring those back, or, the board can also think tank these types of ideas. If textbooks are still a big gap, right? Like, what do we want to do as an organization? Do we want to, create these subsidies, a subsidy or some sort? This is an idea, right? Like, not necessarily subsidy, or, do we want to make new investments into technologies for online market? WUSA.ca, I know that Facebook Marketplace is a thing. I'm not trying to be the next Facebook, because we're not gonna. However, one challenge on Facebook Marketplace is you don't know who you're meeting, right? So do we create on WUSA.ca a classifieds where you can sell your mini fridge or your cinema, and you gotta log in, right? Maybe having 24-hour meeting spaces with a camera and the SLC. These are all ideas that have happened. Again, these still require resources and people, but they're much leaner ways that we can still deliver channels for our members to, get member savings. We're all about that, obviously. We're trying to be more innovative in delivering our members more value, always. So, yeah, I definitely think it's a great opportunity for us to get to the drawing board and definitely think of some new ways to do it if that is a priority and a big gap that's still being left with the wind down of this bookstore.
Have anything that you'd like to add?
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I like that. That sounds nice. I'll ask one last question and circle back to Jeff's point, because I think that's a good conclusion to end on, at least unless anyone else wants to contribute anything. From the universe, this is a question of, from the university side, the W store, university offers booklet, right? You're on your student ID, blah, 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 it scans it, it tells you what you need. Most of the time it's e-text now, but they're still making new edition hardcover books. They're still selling them out of the W store. Are there any known plans for the W store to, in theory, once we're gone, they'll be in competition with Facebook Marketplace, and that's it?
Yeah, we have met with W Store. Again, we wanted to know where the market was actually going and seeing if there was any saving. So we actually met with retail services directors, Brian, and set that up. And I don't think that we were, seeing if this is a business that they wanted to take over and continuing, since they already have the footprint and all that. It didn't seem like they were interested at all. They were seeing a very similar trajectory. Again, I have not had a new textbook, but they've heavily shifted to a click and collect model where you buy it online and you collect your book. A lot of the transactions are moving even in their spaces to that, different ways, just because what's left in the margins for them to operate, they're up against razor thin margins too.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's no interest in them having their own buyback? Because that's what I would do.
But 5 to 10 years ago, they absolutely would have jumped on this.
Right.
They were asking us to, potentially leave the business so they can do it.
Okay.
However, they've exited the W store from here. This is a prime location, prime building. That just shows you kind of what retail pressures and costs that they're all against. It's tough.
Thank you.
That really quickly. And historically, this conversation I've had with them is all universities view bookstores as cash cows. Truthfully, they made money off them historically, and lots of money. I won't that's just cold honest truth. They aren't anymore. Very few bookstores across the nation in Canada right now are making a profit. And we'll leave it at that. But from the overall research that we've done and conversations we've been engaged with, it is not a profitable space, even from the new sector. It's done with the focus of being a service and really is tied to that academic side of things.
Thank you.
I'll just maybe add one last thing. In conversations I've had with other student societies, who also operate bookstore or use bookstores, they're all facing the same facts, right? They're all going in the same direction. To my knowledge, 2 universities, I think Alberta and one other, have just shut theirs down, and others are in the process as well. So I don't want us to feel like we're some
I know
situation.
I looked around too. They're losing money. It's not working in the current models, but they still have them. I checked with Queens. I checked with McGill. I don't know what else. I checked with Laurier.
Yeah.
Laurier gave up, I think.
Yeah.
Laurier stopped. They still have them
For now.
for now.
It's a question of for how long though. And it's,
Totally.
it's as you know, Brian was saying, you don't want to be the last one catching the
No.
knife, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden we're looking at a huge expense and no income, and like that's going to be much harder to wind down, I guess.
So if we were to circle it back to what Jeff mentioned as well, is it possible for us to look into a totally different way to still provide that service, turn it into an actual service without, I'm asking for the best.
Yeah, I think the challenging part is textbooks take space.
Yeah.
So space is a resource that we're obviously always limited in, and we have lots of, people that are demanding spaces, be it, and clearly, I mean, you see how busy this building is, the bombers flooded, like we don't even have seating space. So no matter what kind of, how we facilitate that transaction, textbooks need to live somewhere. And they gotta live in a dry space, not some off storage because they can get discolored and all that. There's challenges to the textbook transaction that are a little more intimate. Students like to see how much highlighters on the textbook and all that type of stuff. If it's blindly purchased, that may be a challenging for us to manage those transactions and the customer service experience. So again, we have really talked about how to continue to slice this with the physical textbook. I think we're really going to have to, for us to do it, my recommendations would be potentially, again, this is just my recommendations, not from the department, just personally. I would say the digital classifieds, portal for students to post their own, that allows them to facilitate that transaction safely and keep the money in their pocket. That's the most value for it. I think that would be a value potentially for the organizations, instead of see what that costs and timelines and resources and all that. So for IT managers listening on this call, I'm sorry. Or the other one is if there's absolute need for, Texas, we have 34,000 students. Let's say 1% of students, need textbooks and help. That's 300 students, 340 students. No, that would be 10%, right? Yeah. 300 students, right? 300 students, giving them some access to a subsidy of $500 each is probably less than what we would be running that store for. So those are just some things that I challenge the board to keep into mind, the dollars and how we can put these dollars to work and bigger utility we can get out of it.
I was going to say, sorry, just to add to that, we do have a survey coming up at the end of, or in November around academic success. And so certainly there could be an opportunity to ask some questions around textbooks and support folks are looking for, and how that, we've recently done one around financial support and where students are at with that. And obviously, in general, students are feeling a lot of stresses based on their finances and the financial burden of academics, but we might be able to take this opportunity to ask some more questions around this to kind of find out, do students feel like there would be value in any of this, or again, based on the numbers of folks using the store, that handful that, yes, we're hearing from in some of those specific channels that, are bringing some of those things to the forefront, really is this going to be the best spot to spend time to reprioritize our services and our efforts, or is that handful and what we're actually going to be able to do that might be not a lot different than your Facebook marketplaces and things like that, worth putting those words in? So I definitely feel like there's an opportunity to ask some questions in and around that academic success piece that maybe can give us some further insight into that feedback. Because as Kumar said, that the trend is long been seen. We've done some research on it many years ago now, and then just based on the numbers, obviously that cost per where you're putting your resources and making sure that we're not putting extra dollars into something that's supporting a smaller amount of students, knowing the long list that you folks have, prioritized in terms of where students want to see that money go. Would they rather see 370 go to more events and event planning or whatever? Would they rather see 370 a term go to, facilitating the bookstore and stuff like that? So we can ask some more questions around that in that survey if that gives us some more insights.
Sounds nice too. Thank you, and shout out again to all of staff. I know it's beyond late, but thank you. It was just a discussion.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it.
Okay. Is there any other points of discussion that people would like to have on this? Maybe about how they're feeling about Reddit in general? I know I myself, Melissa, and Katie had a general discussion about Reddit before this meeting, and I know. And that's what it kind of sounds like. Not seeing anything. We'll move on to the reports. Hopefully you guys got a chance to read through the reports. Are there any questions? Myself or any of the other directors about the reports? Really tired. Okay. Not seeing any questions. So just some announcements before we go. First thing, as Katie had mentioned, first year fair is tomorrow. Goes from 10 a.m. to 3. Probably be handing out ice cream, but also, chance to meet with the students. I don't know what all your schedules look like, but it'd be nice if you could try and come out for an hour or two just to, be there and be the face of the organization and meet students. Next thing, the festival is next week, Carnival. That's better than the Carnival is next week on Wednesday and Thursday from 4 to 11 p.m. Still looking for volunteers. I had sent out that survey to everyone on board chat, and I think Katie sent it out in an email as well. From my understanding, there's still only
we only have 2 people. 3 and a half.
So I will quickly.
Please, folks, if you can help us out next week.
Yeah.
The carnival, it's going to be a fun time. You'll be seeing thousands of students and engaging with them. And we're going to be running the food tent. So you're going to be helping Brian, myself, and the team run the food tent. It's cotton candy, smoked bones, popcorn, hot dogs, get you hot sauce,
serve ice cream.
They're convincing us with food.
I know.
You also get free. No Tommy Hicks. No Tommy Hicks are allowed.
I've added the link to both this meeting and then also the regular board chat. Please take the time to just fill it out quickly. We are not literally going to be taking 4 to 11 on both days, so do not feel that way. Like, we just want to provide you a chance to enjoy the carnival yourself and to do other things and go to classes. But it's important that, again, that we have that, show of board to the rest of the student body. I think that's very important. I think it's something that we've prioritized at the board, saying that ownership, consultation, being able to meet students is very important to us. So I would hope to see some follow-through from board being able to volunteer some of their time. Easy.
A quick announcement from me. So you guys know WUSA, the Ontario Undergraduate Student Alliance. It's our provincial advocacy group. So we just posted the opportunity to be a delegate for the GA. That will be our General Assembly and plenary that will be happening at the University at Beaufort Laurier. So if you guys are interested in reviewing papers that cover student health and wellness, housing, transit, and community development, and I am blanking on the last paper. I think it's rural and northern students that's being covered at this fall GA. I will post more info to the board chat, but it's online if you guys already know what it is, and it's under volunteer opportunities for WUSA, and I'll follow up later.
Oh, okay, I want us to stay here. No one's allowed to leave. I will. Is that the last of your messages?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wait,
Okay. Yeah, you go ahead and give your announcement. I'll be right back.
Okay, cool. I was cleaning the other day and I came across this WUSA flyer from 2020.
I remember those.
The box, 50 years of planners.
And this one is so cool. I don't know why we don't do this anymore. I know this is
They are, they're
I saw that we were putting in postcards for the thing for the first year kids this year, and I thought those were fine. But I didn't like. Truthfully, I don't know how much students will really care about those. Whereas with this, I'll pass it around if people want to see it.
This conversation was planted.
You've forgotten all about why you had those.
I personally have been involved with 15 student planners.
Give me a moment.
They're a fantastic opportunity for students to get design experience. They have been something in the past that students have gone in and out of waves of being excited about. We did recently ask in our SG survey about some additional incentives that students would like us to devote our time to. The handbook student planner was one of the options they were given. It was on the low end of responses for what students want us to spend that time on in terms of savings and something to get for free. Certainly deals, sponsorships, coupons, those types of things were higher on the list. The biggest thing is it takes a lot of time and dollars to do. And then the selling of sponsorship, which always was sold to offset the cost. And in some years we were able to make a little money, but the goal was that the sponsorship would offset the cost to put it together and to print it. The last one we did was printed the year just as we were going into COVID. And so we were able, which is why it's a blank planner, just as we were going to print and things were still offline, we were able to just remove all the dates so that whenever folks got it, they would get it. And then obviously we went through a few years of not being sure where we were at, so we put the time and the effort into it and not know if we were going to be able to physically get them to students. So we did ask students about where they wanted us to spend that extra time. The handbook in that wasn't something that was highly voted on at that moment, and they sort of mentioned some of those other things as areas of interest. But it's certainly been a fun thing that we have done in the past. I think it's one of those like this or that type of thing. When it comes to those extras that students see value in, or that there's value in spending the time in, where do we want to put those efforts and dollars, I think is the biggest question, because there are tons of different things that we can do. Some are easier lifts. For example, Kumar recently had a really awesome partnership with CNE. We could provide a code to students. They could get a discount. There was some 700 students purchased tickets from us at a discounted rate. So those things are easy, add-ons and savings for students, whereas something like the handbook is a lot of physical work to do year after year. It's been a really cool experience for designers. We have had lots of students take them over time. We've had trends where students are like, oh, we're only using digital, and then they want the physical back again. So it's just sort of one of those this or that, I guess, calculations. But we did ask recently, and it wasn't one of the top ones where they sort of voted they wanted to see us for our time.
I appreciate the context. I brought it up because we've been having discussions about board engagement and about students not really knowing what board is. And it's like we saw the way things were going about it, where people didn't know what WUSA is. And if you look through the book of just things like it explains the structure, it explains services we offer, and like supports local businesses. And I thought it's like a really cool thing to promote. So, and if students don't want to students, I just think it's something that's really considered. This is very operational. This is my suggestions as who really likes that class. But I think it's a really good communicative piece, because then we can get things at orientation that will get put away in a box, basically, because they're getting so many free things all the time. But something like a planner, where they're constantly going through it, they're constantly exposed to information.
Mm-hmm. It definitely was a good marketing tool for us in the past, for sure. We do different things for orientation that get that, and we have different smaller booklets now that hand out and give that high level, and then try and drive folks to web and different things. I will say, in terms of folks that don't know about WUSA, and obviously Reddit is one space, but I'd suggest taking those folks with a bit of a grain of salt. We're continually doing yearly awareness test with students, and over 85% of students regularly say they know who we are and have some general idea of what it is that we do. So although there's lots of depth to the different things that we do, I feel like some of the folks who are in those smaller spaces on Reddit, however many the number that, you know, are a part of some of those, what do you even do, defund WUSA chains, even of 50 comments on some of those threads, you're talking 14, 16 people going back and forth. So just, I don't think that's the full picture as well.
Reddit is a very
Yeah,
I don't think we should base our decision based on what Reddit says.
Yeah, but definitely there's some cool things about the student planner that give students a regular opportunity to engage with what we do. So again, it's definitely one of those things we could revisit and put
Melissa wants to do it, in case she can't now.
resources into. It's one of the
It's gonna be the longest meeting.
fun project. I think, like you said, it's just looking at if we have some more conversations about what those high impact things are. And if it's something that is on your attention and you're having that opportunity to do some engagement, talk to students and let me know, like, what are they thinking about that? And I can share what some of those survey results were too, but deals, discounts, events, those are the types of, you know, things that they're telling us they want more of that time. This one is one of those nice extras, and if we've got dollars and time to put to those extras, it's one of the things we can consider for sure.
I know surveys are an online format, but.
Okay, let's
You want to start on the interchange?
Could it be something like give students?
Are these the ones
Do they have a name?
embroidery?
Mine has a name.
That's okay. Come to the
Send me an email.
and talk to Mike and he can
Poor
do that.
City Falls is sleepwalkers and I don't get.
I already got mine.